after 5 years, I didn't necessarily want to be an ensemble singer the rest of my life, and I hadn't really found my voice and who I was. And so the lure of the studio was so great because I was singing with all these huge stars and working, 15, 20 hours a week, making buckets of money, and I was anonymous and nobody knew who I was. And so my life was my own, and it was quite a ride.
Welcome to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast with Bree Noble. Bree is a musician, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Women of Substance Music Radio and Podcast. Bree's interviews with successful female musicians and industry pros are both inspirational and informational. She also answers your questions about the music business. Bree is on a mission to help you create great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business, and to truly become a female entrepreneur musician.
Hey, this is Bree Noble. Thanks for tuning in to Female Entrepreneur Musician. This is our inaugural episode. We haven't had a few pre-launch episodes, and if you haven't listened to those, they are really helpful in telling you who this show is for and what our format is, what we're going to be talking about each week. We will be releasing a new episode every Friday, and this is our first episode with Erin Dickins. I did this interview a little while ago, and I've hardly been able to wait to get it out because it's such a rich interview. There's so much experience that she has to share with us. I just can't wait for you to hear it. So I am going to start with a little bio about Erin. As a founding member of the Manhattan Transfer, Erin Dickins has enjoyed a remarkable career on stage and in the recording studio. After spending 5 years singing ensemble music with the group, Erin emerged as a top studio singer in New York. Dickins has performed, toured, and recorded with many notable artists, including Leonard Cohen, Bette Midler, James Taylor, The Talking Heads, James Brown, Barry Manilow, Jaco Pastorius, and Ashford and Simpson, just to name but a few. As passionate about cooking as she is about music, Erin Dickins released a new cookbook with accompanying CD, Sizzle and Swing, Jazzin' Up Food. She also released a line of herbal seasonings that shares the moniker, Sizzle and Swing. She was awarded the prestigious Maryland State Arts Council Individual Artist Award in 2012, and also in 2012 was awarded the Best Jazz Vocalist Award by Coffee Talk Radio in Los Angeles. So here is my fun and enlightening interview with Erin Dickins. So I'm really excited to have Erin with us. You guys are going to be blown away by her career, and you just heard her bio, and there's so much amazing information in there. But Erin, I want to ask you, what is not in your bio on a more personal level that we need to know about you?
That I can say on the air.
Yes.
Well, I guess maybe my belief in all things spiritual, that, that we're taken care of and that the right thing is going to happen, and that there's more out there than just, our daily, scrapping along. And maybe I would say also my complete obsession with Cocker Spaniels.
Totally unmusic related.
Unmusic related. I love my dogs. I love my dogs. They sleep in the bed. My poor husband, he puts up with so much.
My kids would love that. They've been begging for a dog, but I'm not a big dog person. Not that I don't like them. I just kind of I have 2 kids and I don't want to take care of another thing.
Yeah. Well, you could look at it this way. They sort of will help you take care of the kids.
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, I'm really thinking about it because my daughter's turning 12 in April and she's begging for that to be her birthday present. So we will see.
Yeah, it's a great joy-filled thing. Unconditional love and devotion and, some messes and a couple chewed shoes and sofas.
Is it hard to leave your dogs when you go on tour?
It's really hard. I really miss them. I feel really lonely. But my husband adores them, and they, being as adaptable as they are, immediately unglue from me and glue onto him. And so he digs the attention, and they're sweeties, so I miss them terribly.
Aw, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, you have such an amazing career span, really, and even in the beginning, just so much cool stuff that happened. But I want to know how you got started with all this.
I got started in a way that people can't even dream of. I went to New York on a project in college, a month-long study course, And I found myself in the office of a publisher who was friends with my mother and some of her friends in New York. My mother, who, by the way, did everything she could to keep me out of New York.
Of course she did.
Of course she did. She shipped me to college in Virginia thinking, the farther away, the better. Maybe she'll ride horses. I mean, it was really funny. So I march into this publisher's office, and there are Tim Hauser and Marty Nelson, two of the Manhattan Transfer originals, and they were just singing some harmonies, and I sang some harmonies, and it was like a light bulb went off, and we were signed to Capitol Records, I would say, within the year, and took off. And, when does that happen? It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen anymore, for sure.
No, it doesn't.
So what year was this?
This was, 19...
I know.
1969 was when we officially started, yeah. And I stayed with them till like 73, 74. And then got so busy as a studio singer in New York, which was really attractive to me. So I opted for that rather than staying with the band, which, was a double-edged sword. I didn't really, after 5 years, I didn't necessarily want to be an ensemble singer the rest of my life. And I hadn't really found my voice and who I was. And so the lure of the studio was so great because I was singing with all these huge stars and working, 15, 20 hours a week, making buckets of money, and I was anonymous and nobody knew who I was. And so my life was my own, and it was quite a ride. It didn't help me find my voice, because you had to be sort of whoever they wanted you to be. Can you sound...
Yeah, you found everybody else's version of your voice, basically.
Yeah, exactly. A good friend of mine once said to me, he was also a singer in the studio world, and he said, Erin, you got to stop being everybody's everything all the time if you want to find your voice.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, pretty
now,
true.
Now, I have to ask you, I just watched, maybe a couple months ago, that movie, 10 Feet from Stardom. How many people in that movie did you work with?
I worked with a couple of them, Mary being the main one, but that was a slightly different group. They were more the touring group. And I worked with the studio group. And in my group were Patti Austin, Valerie Simpson, you probably know of Ashford and Simpson.
Right.
I'm trying to think of names that you would know. Diva Gray, you might know. And Peebo Bryson was in that group. And there were a lot of really great singers. Melissa Manchester was in the group, Bette Midler.
So a lot of those are people that were started out as session singers, and then kind of in the early 80s, they all hit their stride, because that was when I started listening to music, was the early 80s.
Right. And and Barry Manilow was he hired us all to go sing jingles. It's just sort of funny, and you didn't think anything of it. And in the studio, you're playing with players like Will Lee and Steve Gadd, and Cornell Dupree and Marvin Stamm and John Faddis, just extraordinary musicians. And we thought nothing of it. I look back and I think, whoa.
Well, that was just your life. It's not, you couldn't stand outside of yourself, really.
Right. It just all seems kind of normal. And, looking back, it was like being a surfer and catching the perfect wave, because it didn't last that long, because the money was so extraordinary that the advertisers stopped hiring on the scale that they did. And so it changed dramatically in maybe a space of 10 years. But it was a heck of a ride, I got to tell you.
And were you once, I don't know what kind of charting success Manhattan Transfer had in the early days, but I know they had a big hit in the early 80s. Were you kind of like, oh man, I missed that, or you were pretty much over it by then?
I was, early 80s, I was still doing studio work, and I was happy for them, but I didn't really think I wanted to be them. They were so good, and, the longer you stay together and the better you get, the longer you do your craft. And so we were great in the 70s, and they got greater because they did it longer. And I just, no, it wasn't appealing to me.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that you didn't feel like, if only I had,
I know. And what's really funny about it is, it came full circle last year. I don't think I even told you this, but I recorded a CD called Jive, and I decided, I had decided to re-record the song Jive, which was one of the first successes that Mantran had.
By the way, I sang that in high school with my show choir. It's that and Trickle Trickle, and I can't remember what else. Just some of those. It was so fun.
That's so cool. It's such great music. It's great music. No, I don't care who you are. But so I thought I'd re-record it, and my producer Jesse Frederick, because he is who he is, decided to put it to a hip hop beat, which is really cool. And I got a wild hair, and I called Tim Hauser, who was the only other, original founder that's in the current group. And I said, you feel like doing a cameo? And he's like, yeah. And then he ran into Marty Nelson at a benefit. And he goes, Marty, I'm doing this thing with Erin. You got to do it. Before I knew it, I had all the original members. And they're on that CD that you have, singing background. And so it came full circle. And that was so incredible to me, because that was the first thing that we recorded together. The first hit that they had, the first thing that the new group recorded together, and very sadly, the last thing that Tim Hauser recorded, because we lost him about 6 months later. So it's pretty cool. And we actually, in November, all the alumni came up to the Blue Note in Manhattan, and we sang with the current group. And it was the first time we were all on stage together in tribute of Timmy, and that was pretty special.
So my next question for you, because we have a lot of struggling musicians that are listening to this show, and they're trying to figure out how kind of to make their way, and if they've done the right things or the wrong things. And it helps them to hear kind of stories of people that have made it, that had failures along the way, and how they dealt with that. And I'd love to hear, a particular moment that you felt like, oh my gosh, am I going to recover from this kind of story?
I think that it wasn't a moment so much as a movement. When the jingle industry and the background vocal industry started to die in New York for a myriad of reasons, advertisers weren't supporting it, and everybody had a digital studio, so they didn't need the big guns anymore. And I thought to myself, I've been so extraordinarily successful. The business is taking a nosedive. I hate the business. I still haven't found my authenticity and my voice. I'm out of here. And I did. I quit. I moved to Hawaii.
Oh, you were definitely out of here.
I was out of here. I was like, I am done. I am just done. And which was a brilliant move. And, I lost a lot of years. I stayed there for 10 years. But I found myself. And Hawaii is, they call it one of the chakras of the planet. And everybody you meet there is either on a spiritual journey or drunk on the beach or in recovery or it's just, there are no normal people in Hawaii. But it really gave me an opportunity to get away from the pressures of the business. And, am I young enough? Am I thin enough? Am I smart enough? Am I rich enough? It's like I finally realized that none of that really matters. My resume is not who I am. I am and have value just because I'm here. And that was a huge realization. I think I was very insecure, early on in New York because of the pressures. People will talk about you and your looks and your voice while you're in the room as if you're not even there. And it can be debilitating. So I took that time and I studied a course in miracles and got really healthy and said, I'm done with music. But of course, music being my muse, tap, tap, tap on the shoulder. I'm not done with you. You're coming back. And I, of course, ran into brilliant musicians with whom I'm still great friends. Bruce Hamada stands out as one of my favorite bass players in the world. And so I did quit. But I think that what is most important and what you can learn about that, or what you can do if you don't want to quit, is to go inside and stop listening to the voices around you and listen to your own voice. And discover who it is you are and what it is you have to contribute to the, to the good of the order, as they say. And when you do that, you will find your self-worth, and it won't matter what's going on around you anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you fail or if you succeed, because you have succeeded, because you're working from the inside out. You know what I mean?
That is so important. I mean, so many people don't realize that till it's really too late to recover from it, Till you don't have anything left of you because you've been trying to be somebody else that everybody wants you to be all this time.
Right.
So it's good that you took that time off. And I know what you mean about the muse thing. Like every time I had a baby, I thought, I'm done. I'm not doing any more music. I'm focused on this. And like literally about 6 weeks in, I'm like, I got to do something with music. I just can't focus on a baby my entire, life. It's fulfilling, but not enough when you've been doing the music.
And the lullabies ain't cutting it, right?
No, they were not. Even if they were in German, they weren't cutting it. So,
but I think that's the thing. It's like a lover that you never get over. It's like a codependent relationship. You just can't get away from it,
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
And oh, happy day. Thank goodness, because I think I'd be lost if I didn't have this connection to this passion,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what event or influence was critical in bringing you to where you are today?
Well, gosh, I don't think I could say it was an event. I think the influence maybe would have been the time that I spent in Hawaii and doing some spiritual work and sort of getting out of my own head. I think that this is a little deep for, I don't know, but I think that you can't make a bad decision. And when you realize that, everything gets easier, because what you may decide to do that may look bad, like me leaving New York and quitting, everybody thought, oh, God, how could she do that? She's ruined her career. It was a great decision because I grew in ways that I needed to grow. It took me to where I needed to be then to get to where I am today. And so I make my decisions now on my gut and on my heart, and they take me to the next step. And sometimes I go, oh, well, that would have been lucrative. I wish I did it. Or that would have been fun, taking that tour. But I don't think in the big picture, I don't think it matters, because I think you're taken to the lesson you need to learn to go to the next step in your life, in your growth.
I think that's true. And really, the only bad decision you could make is to make no decision at all. Like if you feel like you're stuck or you're not doing what you're supposed to do, but you don't know what that is, you got to at least try something.
Yeah, exactly.
And to just be, you could still be in New York right now being frustrated, trying to do backup work and not making enough money, but not knowing what else to do. You at least took a leap of faith in some direction.
It's like being paralyzed with fear when you can't take a chance.
Right.
And I think that it took me a long time to learn how to take chances.
Yeah.
I was so afraid of don't bend over, your tummy might not look good, or, whatever you do, don't improvise because you might sing a wrong note. And boy, that, I tell you, it's like freedom when you get over that,
So tell us about a mentor that you had along the way. I think for me, one of the most important things for me to get across to musicians is you really need a mentor. You need someone that has either been there before or has helped other people get there before, so you can really have a roadmap, because otherwise you're just like a shot in the dark.
I think you are. I think, being in Manhattan Trance for openers, trying to make it in a group situation is so much easier than trying to make it as a soloist, because you've got your cronies and you're in a group and you mentor one another on a certain level. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even though, and we were kind of, breaking new ground as it was. And so that was really helpful. I mean, I think my dad certainly was a mentor, because he was an amateur musician who taught me how to play, and he played only because he loved it. And he played every time he could. He played banjo and guitar and piano. And so that's what rooted me in the joy of music. I mean, like at 8. So right. Now I have from 8 to 18 before I'm hit with, the business of music. So that's good.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Then you can really come to love it before you have to deal with all the crap that goes along with it,
Right. So at some point in your life, you go back and you remember that and you go, right. But I think once I was up and running and really stretching out, I would have to say Leonard Cohen.
Oh,
I know.
I read that story. I read all those cool stories about dealing, being with famous musicians, and I read the one about, you working with Leonard Cohen, and I was really impressed
Oh,
because his songwriting is like crazy.
crazy good. And I mean,
Yeah.
getting that call was like, seriously? But watching him work, nothing fazed him. Sort of like what we were talking about. He works from the inside out, not from the outside in. And watching his authenticity and the way he just danced to his own drummer. And, even today, he's like 78 years old. He does 3.5-hour concerts. 20-somethings are screaming in the audience. There there's no age, there's no time, there's no barrier. He just is who he is. And that's what probably made me really go on this search for authenticity. It was probably what contributed to going to Hawaii, because I'm in the studio. Can you sound a little whiter? Can you sound a little bit more like Anne Murray? Can you sound a little, I thought to myself, why am I doing this? What is this? This is not.
So they didn't want to pay Anne Murray. They wanted a cheaper version of Anne Murray. So they want you to sing like Anne Murray.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Here's a story for you. I'm in the recording studio with Valerie Simpson, Ashford and Simpson, Valerie Simpson. And the talk back comes, and she's singing the lead. It's for Lifesavers. Val, can you sound a little whiter? And she just looks at them. And then she looks at me. She says, Erin's white. You could have Erin sing it. Or I could sing it like Valerie Simpson. I mean,
good job, Valerie.
It was the most insulting thing I'd ever heard. They have like a certifiable genius, musical genius, and they want her to sound a little whiter. So, I mean, when you're dealing with that, and then you go on stage with Leonard Cohen, you kind of say, okay, I get it.
So what makes you unique as an artist? Because I see so many artists. I'm constantly, listening to music by female artists all day long. And a lot of times I see them just trying to sound the same as everybody else and be the same. And their bios are just so like, you need to stand out somehow. What do you think makes you unique, and how has that served you, and have you capitalized on that?
Well, I think capitalization is a story all its own. But I think a couple things musically, if we want to stick to musically, I think that my choice of material, I'm not the next girl in the black dress singing the American songbook. As beautiful as those tunes are, I don't want to do that. And I think that my delivery of lyrics, my ability to sort of speak the story and become immersed in it. I don't sing a song unless the lyrics really touch me. So musically, I would say that. As an artist, as an entertainer, I relate tremendously to what you were saying about your performances, where you tell your own story and you engage your audiences in your life and in your heart and your soul. And I think that rings true for me, because I think what we have to give is the sort of unbridled joy that we get from doing it. And I feel that that's just something that we channel. It's not something I create or you create or any musician creates. It's something that's given to us. And I think that the job at hand is to pass that on. And I think that when you have a room full of people, be it 100 or 100,000 for a couple of hours, you can raise, sort of elevate the vibration of the planet by freeing people from the doldrums that they're in, their mortgages, their relationships, their illnesses, all the things that are bothering them. They can forget that and just receive this joyful experience together as a group. And I think that is where the juice is. And that, if you can tune into that juice, you've gotten the payoff. So, that's capital. It's not capital that's going to go up to Merrill Lynch in New York, but it's big capital spiritually and emotionally. Again, I say I don't think that I can do it. I think that, I pray before I go on stage. I don't pray, oh, dear God, make this go okay. I pray, oh, dear God, please help me get out of the way. Help me be a vehicle. Mm-hmm. Help me be the vehicle for the joy. Just use me up, man. I'm there. And the hardest thing I think to do, but one gets better with experience, is like you're standing on stage. Oh, God, my top doesn't feel right. I hope it doesn't look stupid. Oh, God, that note was a little flat. Oh, man, the drummer's rushing a little. You got to get out of that. You have to forget that. other
Oh my
times.
gosh, that self-talk is so
Oh,
distracting. I hate it when I'll be like playing a song and this stuff will be going through my head and I'm like, how am I remembering what I'm going to play
I
next when
know.
this stuff is going in my head? Stop.
I know. And you can't begin to get inside the music otherwise. You can't. You can't do it.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but if I think about what the lyric is to start the second verse, I can't. I lose it. I can't remember the lyric.
Yes.
It's bizarre. So
I
I've learned
know.
not to do that. I just sing the song, stay in it, it'll come.
It does. It's in there.
It's a,
Don't get in its way,
right.
right?
I always joke, every new song I learn, I've reached critical density. I'm afraid it's going to bounce an old one.
That's funny. So you've had so many amazing experiences along the way. Can you think of one in particular that is like was such a mind-blowing experience that you were kind of thinking to yourself, pinch me, is this really me, and is this really happening to me?
I can think of a few. Just because it was such an amazing time in New York, and everything musical in the recording studios was happening in New York, and I was there. And so I was on a gig with Manhattan Transfer, and we opened for James Taylor and spent, it was like a 2-night gig. We spent the entire day, the Saturday of the gig, at the home of Jim Croce, making,
Oh,
I know,
love Jim Croce.
making,
He was like my childhood
oh,
favorite.
love it. I'm still great friends with his wife, Ingrid, who's a lovely woman.
Mm.
But we were making flutes out of reeds in a pond, and it was all the Mantran and Croce and Ingrid and James. And, then the next night we get on stage and we all sang together. And, I walked away from that gig going, that was James Taylor. I didn't think much of Jimmy because he was an old friend. So, that was Jimmy, but that
Right.
was a big one. And I think I did Saturday Night Live with Dr. John and Levon Helm. That was really, really, really fun.
What year was that? That was pretty early in Saturday Night Live.
It was,
when it was a huge
it might
hit.
have been, it wasn't the first show. It was like the first year or second year, maybe 77.
Okay.
Maybe 78. I
Wow.
can't remember. But he had a band. Dr. John put a band together with Levon Helm, of course, from the band, who's maybe the world's greatest drummer, and Paul Butterfield, the blues harpist.
Oh,
And
wow.
they called themselves the RCO All-Stars. And my friend Annie Sutton and I did Saturday Night Live with them, where I met Linda Ronstadt, who was hosting. And she asked me if I would go on tour with her. And that was big. And
Wow.
I felt a real sort of simpatico with her, but I turned her down because I didn't want to be out of town that long. That I might regret a little bit, because I felt like she and we hit it off so heavily, and she was so special. And I felt like, if for no other reason, screw the career, it would be really great to have known her better.
Right.
So, but not really a regret. So those are a couple. The Call by
Wow.
Leonard Cohen was big. I went on the road with Greg Allman. That was huge.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I knew it was going to be hard to find
And
one because there's just so
my
many.
boyfriend from New York kept flying down at different places on the tour because he was so worried about me out with these southern boys.
I don't blame him. They have quite a
Oh, yeah.
reputation.
It's all true.
I'm sure. Okay, so we finally get to hear about what you're doing now, which I think is so cool. So tell us about your new project.
Well, what we haven't talked about is that all these years that I've been doing music, I've also been really heavily into cuisine and gourmet cooking. And in fact, Mantran, we used to cook together before and after rehearsals, and we were all into it. And maybe that's where I first got the passion for cooking. So at some point, I thought, why wouldn't I combine my two passions? I don't know any musicians who don't love food and don't cook. We all cook. After gigs, cats will come back to my house and we'll crack open a bottle of wine and make a crab omelet or, whatever it is that we're doing. And so I started writing some of my recipes, and then it occurred to me, well, what recipe would you put with what song? And so only somebody completely
Thinking like a musician, yes.
In my own world. So I wrote a cookbook that that is inspired by the tunes on my Java Jive CD. And each song has a recipe and a story. And for example, since we're on Leonard Cohen, my first gig with Leonard Cohen was at a festival called the FEM01 in Paris. And it was huge. And afterwards, he took the band to a really cool bistro and treated us all to steak frite, which is essentially steak and French fries.
Steak and fries, right.
I mean, but nobody does it like the French. And so that was my first steak frite, which really was great, and my first concert with Leonard. And so I thought that was a good match. And I paired it with a song called Je cherche un homme, which is a French chanson that I truly love. And so that was on the CD. And so you can listen to Je cherche un homme and cook yourself some steak frite. So each song has a story, and I, tell some tales out of school. You got to do it.
Yes, got to do it.
And it was a great and joyful experience. And I'm finding that a lot of people, I've called to book me, which may solve, the sort of booking problem in the United States, which is not easy. Would you do a gourmet concert for me? And we get together and put together a menu, sometimes using recipes from my book or ones that I know or ones that they know, using my line of herbal seasonings, which I just created called Sizzle and Swing. And we talk about the food and we talk about wines and we create a great evening. And then I do a set afterwards of jazz. And it's a really nice evening because the audience...
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
I know.
That is awesome.
And the audience gets so involved. And what I can't do is be in the kitchen and cook it. So I work with, a chef or a cook from a local restaurant, or we've done it as a house concert for like 50 people, which was just the bomb. It was so much.
I was going to ask about that. That sounds like the coolest house concert
ever. And the audience become friends, and they're talking with you like friends. So while you're on stage, they're asking questions about the food or the songs or it is so fun. It brings it to another level.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, if you ever come to California, I would love to do that. That is awesome.
I actually have been thinking about it because Ingrid Croce has a really fabulous restaurant and music place.
Yes, yeah. I've been there in San Diego.
Yeah. So, and she's invited me out, and I just haven't gotten my act together, to put together a few things. But what would be the most fun would be house concerts, cooking.
Yes.
Because then you can do it just with a great pianist. It's not a big deal. It's not sound systems everywhere, and he's dragging around, trios and quartets, and it becomes so intimate,
Yeah. Oh, that would be
awesome. It'd be really fun.
So I'm curious how your current audience, if they really got on board with this project, and if you found kind of a new audience with this project.
Both.
That's great.
I found a foodie audience, and the stores who carry my line of seasonings all want the book, and when they buy the book, they'll say, can you sign 6 of them for me, because we want our customers to have a signed book, and people go home and they listen to the music and they use the seasonings, which are delicious, and they're designed to sort of help the home cook have an easier time. I mean, nobody wants to be zesting tangerines and figuring out exactly what you have to put to make, that flavor right. And so I have 4 different varieties that have herbs and spices in them and some sea salts, and they just make life easy,
No, what are the 4 varieties called?
One is called, it's Meyer lemon zest with 2 different varieties of basil.
Oh,
so it's minty and lemony and orangey at the same time, which is delicious. I should send you some. I'll send you some.
I have got to try this.
I'm making out.
I'm actually, I love eating, but I'm not very good at cooking. So
I will send you a set of them. So, and then one is dill and tangerine zest, which you've died and gone to heaven when you put it on salmon or eggs or salads or.
Ooh, I have some salmon in the fridge right
now. I don't think I
can
get this there fast enough.
Not that quickly, I know.
But and then I have one that's called chili lime and cilantro, which is great for almost anything. I thought nobody would buy it, but that's my biggest seller. And the other one is a nice Tuscan blend, great for grilled meats and veggies, and there's a rub, and so they're good, and it's been really fun. And getting to talk about food and sing in the same thing is like, it doesn't get any better for me anyway.
So with your new project, what kind of tools have you used to promote that? What has worked the best? Networking, social media, some kind of online tools. Have you used an agency to help promote it?
I think, the sad thing to say is that I think that my best promotion comes when I'm in the room, because I'm just a sucker for good food and music. And so, I'm so excited about it that it becomes contagious. Social media, I think, social media is great, but it doesn't monetize anything. But it does make you a lot of friends, and I've made friends all over the world, which is so fun. I'm going back to Germany in the spring, and I have friends that I've met on social media who I'm going to see, and I love that. In fact, that happened to me in Australia. Somebody came to backstage at this concert hall and said, so-and-so is here, and I said, and he said to tell you Facebook, and I was like, oh, I can't believe it. There he was.
Wow.
It was so cool. So I think social media is great. I think that people largely overlook traditional media, magazines and newspapers and radio and, shows like yours are more traditional. And I think that they inform large numbers of people in the area that you're coming. So that, I try and do that. I try and have somebody send a press release to 3 or 4 local papers and radio stations whenever I'm performing.
Well, that's what I love about radio and podcasting, because the audio medium, you really connect with the person on the other end. Our listeners right now, I think when they're done with this interview, they really know you. They're going to feel like they talked with you in person for an hour.
Right, and that's what's about a podcast, because you're not dealing with advertisers who are limiting your time. When I've gotten on traditional radio, I'll say something like, it's really important to me, and that'll be this. And I've said something really meaningful and it's like, it's really important to me. And podcasts are so brilliant, because if you have some sort of a connection with the interviewer, as I do with you, we feel very comfortable together, then this is something that you can play for years and send around to your friends, and, people enjoy it. Like you said.
Right. And the people that listen to our podcast are a very specific kind of people. It's very niche. They are wanting to hear what you have to say. It's not just this like scattershot thing where you're, going on the radio and who knows, there's a bunch of sports fans listening. They're not interested in hearing about food,
Yeah.
So that's what I love about podcasting. But I was wondering, with your, food and recipes, and it can be so visual if you, take some fabulous pictures. Have you used things like Pinterest and Instagram to promote it at all?
I use Instagram a lot. In fact, I drive a lot of my posting from Instagram through Facebook and Twitter, because I like Instagram. I'm a little disenchanted with Facebook just because they've put so many sort of filters on the data that my friends aren't seeing what I'm saying, and I'm not seeing what my friends are saying. It drives me crazy.
I know. I have 10,000 fans for Women of Substance Radio, and I'll get some post that says like 25 people saw this.
Are
you kidding me?
25 people saw this. It drives me out of my mind. It's just wrong. And Twitter is the better tool, but it takes, I think, 5,000 followers on Twitter. And so it's effective when it goes out, but your tweet has like a 10-minute reach. And so you've got to either automate, which I think can become obnoxious, or you've got to be pretty diligent about tweeting once an hour or something if you want the majority of your people to see you. But once that starts to reach the tipping point, I think that Twitter is the more powerful tool.
I agree. Twitter has been great for this podcast because and for the Women of Substance podcast also, because I send very specific tweets to particular artists. Yep. And then they will retweet it to their fans, so it's got that viral thing going on, which is which is awesome. But I haven't really figured out how to use Instagram for audio content yet.
Yeah.
I don't have these fabulous pictures to
No.
share. You can show pictures of me standing in front of my computer with headphones on. It's really not very exciting.
And here comes the same one again. You can.
And this is what I do every day.
You can use video, but I think it's like, is it 15 seconds or 20 seconds?
It's shorter than Vine. It is like 20 seconds.
So that's really tough, but you got to do pictures. But you could have your artist send pictures.
That's a good idea.
It would be really fun, and I don't know how to do it. Well, I do know how to do it, but I'm afraid I won't look as gorgeous as I am in my mind. Is have your artist take a selfie when they're sitting at the computer talking to you.
Oh,
right?
That's
and right
true.
before you could do it right before the podcast. You could put
that's an interesting idea.
Here, wait. All right, I'll do one.
Okay.
Oh, this is just so horrifying. I'll send it to you, Bree, only because I love you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so I have to ask, what is your most prized possession as a musician? Is it a certain microphone, a certain instrument, I don't know, a recording tool? What's your most prized possession?
My pianist.
Oh, I totally love that answer.
My pianist and my health, including my mental health. My pianist, because, he's everything.
Well, and if you have a pianist that you have complete simpatico with, as far as he follows everything you do and you just have this chemistry, this rhythm together, it is magical, really.
It totally is magical. It's, and I change pianists a lot because I travel. And, I can't bring my beloved Steph Scajari, who's down here in Maryland, with me to Europe. But I play with this incredible guy named Peter Van Santen, who's just insane. And Steph is insane. And, I got a guy in Texas and I got a guy, so each time you get up to do your same material, it comes to life in a new way. And that's really fun.
So do you have a book that you can recommend, either of a creative musical nature, a business nature, or even like a self-improvement nature that you think that people should read or would be helpful to our listeners?
I've got a couple of them. In terms of, for singers, there's a great book written by the fabulous Nancy Morano, who is a great voice teacher and also music theory teacher. And she wrote a book called Musicianship for the Jazz Vocalist, which is really something. And it can be for beginners. It can take you right through the very beginnings of reading and ear training and, that sort of thing. But if you're more advanced, you can start in the middle of the book and get into much deeper theory. And she's talks about voice training and about theory and about, I went to her for a voice lesson. I wanted a tune-up before I went to Europe a couple of years ago. And she said, you don't need singing lessons. You need to learn how to play the piano. I thought,
that's interesting.
God. So I've been, struggling along with that. But it does help me. It's helped my ear. It helps me as I'm putting together arrangements for my stuff. It's helped me a lot. So I'm grateful to her. And then the other thing I'd really recommend is, and I've forgotten the author's name, but I'm a student of the Alexander technique, which is now required study in many, many conservatories, certainly in Europe more than here, but it's sort of psychophysical training. It's like yoga on steroids, and it's for balance and coordination, and it's extremely beneficial to musicians and actors and athletes, and you'll find so many study it. Like Sting is a big Alexander guy, and so's Glenn Close, and so's Kevin Kline. Charlie Chaplin was a master. So anyway, this thing is called Alexander Technique and the Voice, or you could just look up anything on the Alexander Technique for musicians. It helps relieve tension and teach you to use your body in such a way as that you're getting the most and best use of it. So I've found since I started studying, my voice has opened up, and I'm having to change keys of my songs up instead of down, which most people do.
Wow, that is amazing.
I know. And a lot of some of my really high stuff that I used to do in my 20s is back. So it's not easy. It's a lesson a week for a long time, but wowie kazowie. Yeah.
It's
And then
worth it.
spiritually, I'd say A Course in Miracles, which is a lovely course of spiritual mind treatment, just helping you undo the thinking of the world and reconnect with with spiritual thinking. And it's kind and gentle and powerful. So there's three.
Love that. Cool. That's great. And of course,
And
your
of course,
book. We'll put that
because
in the show
you know,
notes for
cooking
sure.
is spiritual too.
It is. It is. That's what my husband does to relax.
Bless him.
So I can't believe it, but we have come to the end of our interview, and I would love to know how people, and the best way that people can contact you on social media and website.
Well, I'd say the best is to go to erindickins.com, and there you will find links to all my social media, as well as links to Sizzle and Swing, which is my food site where you can buy the book and the seasonings and get recipes and stuff like that. So that's probably the easiest, but you find me on Facebook under Erin Dickins or Sizzle and Swing. Easy. Same thing on Twitter. But I'd say erindickins.com is the best way. And I've kept it on my site that if you email me at erin@erindickins.com, you will get me. Because I think that's
Wow.
important. And if
It's not going to go into some admin black
it's
hole
not.
somewhere.
And you know, when I'm really, really busy and I can't keep up with all of that, you know, my husband will read through stuff for me and make sure, you know, Erin, you got to answer this, you got to talk to this person, you got to, you know, which is great because I just feel like as long as it's possible for me to do that, I will do that.
Well, it has been so cool talking to you. I love hearing all the cool old stories and you know, seeing how you've kind of transformed yourself and, you know, made yourself into a completely different career today, which I think is really, you know, perfect for the times that we're in. It's been such a long time coming getting this interview together, and I'm so glad you were patient with me that we made it.
I know, I'm really glad. Well, I knew I wanted to talk to you. I think we talked a couple of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, through Ariel Hyatt.
Yeah,
whom I love and who has remained a great friend. And so you stuck out with me as I remembered. It was like really special. And I said, I got to find Bree and tell her what I'm doing.
Thank you. That's nice to know that I made some kind of an impression anyway. Well, thanks so much. And I will get your interview up very soon. And I'm sure our audience will love it.
Thank you so much, Bree. It was really a great joy to talk to you again.
Now go out and make great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business. Female Entrepreneur Musician has been brought to you by FEM01.com and FemaleMusicianAcademy.com. With editing by Bree Noble and music by Stella Ronson.